Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think we can probably start now. I hope you all had not too much difficulty in parking. There was a bit of a problem, I think. First of all, just a few things to run through. This is an extraordinary meeting of the full council. I'm Councillor Sue Wilson. I haven't got a chain on because I nearly decapitated myself the other day and it's now being mended. That's why I'm not wearing it. And I'll be chairing this meeting this evening, which is held in the Rick Stones Academy Theatre. This evening, due to the venue and our seating arrangements, we will be operating slightly differently and your patience will be appreciated. First of all, I would like to welcome all those in attendance this evening. We're not being webcast, but an audio recording will be made of this meeting and then will be published on the Council's website following this meeting. To ensure that all members can be heard and their contribution clearly captured to the audio recording of this meeting, we have two governance officers who will hand a microphone to members, and I invite them to speak. And we have got quite a few more microphones floating around, so it should be much better. If members wish to speak, please can you indicate by clearly raising your hand. A governance officer will bring you the microphone. For your safety and those around you, please remain seated when speaking. For the safety of the officers walking in the theatre, please do not place items in the vacant rows and on the stairs. Members, for this meeting, we will be voting by way of a show of hands. Therefore, members should clearly raise their hands when indicating their vote when called upon to do so. Members, we have 3 hours for this meeting, and I would be extremely grateful if members could keep their speeches concise to assist with ensuring that we conclude this meeting within the time allocated. We're not expecting a fire alarm, however, in the event of an alarm, please leave via the fire exit and assemble in the car park. I think that's probably out that way. Can I also remind everyone to ensure that they have their mobile phones switched to silent? Thank you, members. I will now proceed to the first item of business, agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We have 1 or 2, Councillor Mrs Angela Kilmartin, Councillor Trevor McArdle, Councillor Saif Raymond, Councillor Jackie Pell and Councillor David Hume.
Chairman, we also have apologies from Councillor Nick Unsworth this evening. Thank you.
Right, anybody else? No. I will then now proceed to agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interest other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? If so, can you state the item and the nature of your interest? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In respect of the item 5, I am a Essex Climate Action Commissioner.
Councillor Butland.
Madam Chairman, declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council who are referred to in both papers.
Did I see one more? Councillor Thorogood.
I too am a member of the Essex County Council Climate Change Commission. Thanks.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. In relation to item 5, I'm a member of Parishes Against Incineration, non-pecuniary, and in relation to item 6, also non-pecuniary, I'm an active founder member of the Earls Cohen to Kelvedon Plus cycling group. Thanks.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council in relation to both the main items this evening? Thank you.
Councillor Swear.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just declare an MPI as a member of Essex County Council with special responsibility for climate? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will proceed to item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Please can I have a proposal to approve the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting of full council held on the 26th of July.
Move, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Butland,
Seconded.
Councillor Tom Cunningham. Thank you. The minutes have been moved and seconded as an accurate record. All those in favour, please indicate. Yes, approved, thank you. I'll proceed to item number 4, public question time. We have 5 registered speakers for this evening's meeting. 3 are here in person, and there are 2 statements which I can use my discretion to allow to be read out. I have used my discretion in the absence of the registered speaker. Whilst I would normally call the speakers in the order which they have registered, I have used my discretion further to reorder the speakers to allow those who are in attendance this evening to speak first. The statement which I have allowed under my discretion will be read out by a governance officer at the end of the session. All the registered speakers have 3 minutes each to make their statements. At the end of each statement, I will ask the relevant cabinet member to respond to the statement or to confirm that a written response will be given. The first speaker this evening is Mr. Michael Staines of Stock Street Farm, who would like to speak on agenda item 5, Climate Change Strategy 2021 to 2030 and Initial Action Plan. Mr. Staines, you're there already. That's fine. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stopping the ever-morphing and ever-worsening incinerator in rural Essex must be BDC and Councillor Schweer's key goal as Essex's climate czar. All councillors should take tonight's opportunity to call for Essex to flex its enforcement muscle now to stop this huge burner coming to Essex. An integrated waste management facility at Rivenhall was granted approval in 2010. Integrated means separating and managing waste from food and organics, recyclables, paper and metal, and using a small incineration capacity for non-recyclables to generate energy with additional fuel from site biomass. So why isn't it operating now? In 2015, the applicant secured an additional year and used it to find a commercial incineration partner, vary the design to reduce recycling and increase incineration capacity by 64% to 600,000 tonnes a year. And that makes Rivenhall one of the UK's largest incinerators. Essex County Council's Condition 66 required that the site deliver beneficial use within 5 years or within 6 months of the 5 years submit a plan to rehabilitate the site or, worryingly, submit an alternative site use. The plan of action submitted after 5 years focuses on incineration. It warns that planned recycling activities may be too technical or not sufficiently profitable to ever be delivered, especially when their partner doesn't do any of these things. It now seems the integrated waste management facility will never be built as approved, and that all waste arriving at Rivenhall will be incinerated with the permanent loss of any potential recycling. So what might the applicant do next? Increase incinerator capacity again? 32% increase from today's level would see Rivenhall take second place in the UK's league table from Belvedere Kent with 800,000 tonnes, or they might go all out to knock Runcorn off the top spot and apply to burn 1.1 million tonnes instead. More capacity, naturally, would increase HGV traffic through Bradwell beyond the additional 400 HGVs a day already approved. The empty sheds planned for waste management and recycling could store the toxic bottom ash, which at 30% of the input tonnage is a large byproduct of incineration and still needs somewhere to go. If they got approval to store and bury their own toxic waste, would they not seek to vary planning again so the site can accept any toxic landfill material? It would be a nice little earner, wouldn't it? Anyway, what can we do tonight? We can emphatically urge Essex County Council to reject the proposed changes to Condition 66 and stop the development, which now has little in common with the original approved integrated application. We can highlight the extent of planning creep and the risk of more of the same ever-worsening consequences for the district, which has no plans to mitigate emissions on this scale. We can reject the applicant's plan of action because it kicks open the door to ever more changes, moving further and further away from the original integrated concept. Now, if we can't trust them in planning, how can we trust them to safely operate and monitor the toxicity of emissions or manage the daily HGV numbers? The incinerator is now out of time. Planning approvals lapsed, and so the site should be restored to woodland or prime farmland and not be industrialised. Acting today, we should remove this long-standing threat to the district's environment, roads and economy, which could be welcomed by the electorate and gives us all a fighting chance of making Essex a greener place to live, work, visit and attract sustainable investment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Sorry, slightly more than 3 minutes I was going to say, but thank you very much. You can remain in that seat if you would like to for the rest of the meeting.
Would you like to invite Mr. Smith to respond?
Sorry.
Would you like to invite Mr. Smith to respond?
Yes. And Mrs. Smith, would you like to respond? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's very little I can say. It's quite clearly set out on page 25 of your agenda, the Braintree District Council's view on this matter. We can do no more than is said there, and we will just continue to do it. That's all I have to add, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right, Mr. Cowland, would you like to sit at the table? And you have 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you. I am speaking on behalf of Marks Hall Estate, which is a charity just outside Coggeshall. As part of our plans to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of our charitable trust, we have been planning to create a recreational cycleway on part of our estate for the use of our members and other users. However, if it would enable the creation of an end-to-end cycle route for all types of users, including school children, commuters, pedestrians, etc., then we would be willing to contribute our 6-kilometre section of the planned 9-kilometre route between Coggeshall and Earl's Cone to enable a quick win for this large cycle route. As some members of the Council will be aware, this 9-kilometre route could be delivered relatively quickly and to a high all-weather standard. Indeed, parts of the route already exist within the infrastructure of our estate, and the rest runs over existing quiet country roads. The draft cycle strategy before your Council tonight proposes connectivity between the rural parts of the district as a means of achieving multiple aims. The route we are planning connects 2 key villages in the district, our Arboretum and an industrial estate, and furthermore is part of an ambitious plan to connect it further to Halstead and to Kelvedon as well. The opportunity to make rapid progress on the cycle strategy implementation through supporting the development of this scheme would give an early boost to cycling in Braintree District. However, as your Council will understand, given the significant adverse impact of the pandemic on our financial position, Marks Hall Estate simply cannot undertake expenditure beyond the contribution of granting permitted access rights over our land and some preparatory work which we can do in-house using our own resources. We simply cannot afford the incremental financial commitment to build this entire 9-kilometre route to Essex and your own Council standards. We would therefore be looking for financial support from both Braintree and Essex County Councils and local fundraising to complete the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cowland. Councillor Ricky, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I'd just like to thank the Speaker for introducing his short summary. I would like to provide a full written response, if that's okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Would you like to go back to your seat? Thank you. The third speaker for this evening is, I don't think, is who I think it is. I've got a Mr.
Chairman, sorry for interrupting, but Mrs Moxhay is representing Mr Dell this evening. So if you'd like to invite Mrs Moxhay to the speakers table, and she is reading the statement in the absence of Mr Dell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. My name's Leslie Moxhay, and I'm the tree warden for Hatfield Peveril. And I'm reading this, as we've just heard, on behalf of Mr Kevin Dale, who couldn't be here, unfortunately, this evening. Mr Dale works as a climate change professional. So this is Mr Dale's statement. I commend the Council for drawing up a climate change strategy, a BDC carbon neutral by 2030. The draft strategy before you highlights there is much more to be done between now and the 2030 net zero target. My own thoughts for the future include more monitoring of air quality, hard data to advise councillors' decisions, for example, associated with the major new road building on the A120 and A12, plus the Rivenhall incinerator, and set a goal not to exceed World Health Organization safety thresholds. For sustainability, solar panels need to be on roofs, not on our best food-growing land. Flood mitigation needs natural methods, not pouring more concrete onto the environment. Compel every new planning application to reference the BDC climate change policy and demonstrate ways in which new proposals will enable it. For example, I would support climate change mitigation initiatives in tree planting, rooftop solar and EV charging as obligations in all new planning grants. This is especially in affordable housing schemes where cost may be an unwelcome barrier to lifestyle change. However, my thoughts on the here and now are, as more and more climate change data is becoming available, it is quite obvious we are aiming at a moving target. We have yet to see the local plan delivered. We have yet to see how society adjusts to a post-COVID pandemic world. We have yet to see the outcomes of COP26, and we have yet to see the Environment Bill come through Parliament. I note on page 6 of the strategy, it says the strategy will be reviewed when that bill becomes available. It is good to have a strategy, but this draft, by its own admission, does not go far enough. It is just the beginning. 317 on your agenda today hints at this. Councillors, when you deliberate and vote on the strategy today, my question is, will you please add a formal undertaking that the work on the next revision begins immediately and will proceed in earnest? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Moxhay. Councillor Smith, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
Thank you, Chairman. I will make some points now and then put them in a written response for Mr Dale. A number of his points are, in fact, planning matters, and things, for example, like solar panels are dealt with on their own merits, and unfortunately we cannot insist at this moment whether they will be placed on roofs or fields. Likewise, we cannot compel all planning applications to refer to our climate change policy, but we may be in a position to produce a supplementary planning document which would encourage, sadly we don't have the powers to force. Flood mitigation, that is in fact an Essex County Council who are the lead authority on that, but they are of course a consultee for any planning applications. Electric vehicle charging points. This is a requirement in our draft local plan that all new dwellings should have them, and of course something that the government is pushing for, so we hope that will go through. On the comments about the strategy being reviewed, yes, we admit it's what it is. It's a start. It's going to be a living document. It will be revised, refined, depending on what happens with things like the Environment Bill, when Essex County Council respond to their Essex Bill. And as we say on 3.17, that this is how it will be. And in fact, he says about revising it immediately. Well, in fact, our next meeting is planned for the 30th of September and another one in November, and so it will go on. It is, as we say, a living document and will completely change as either laws change or, of course, things like, hydrogen, whatever comes along. We will be continually revising this document. So I thank Mr. Dale indeed for his comments and interest.
Thank you, Mrs. Moxhay. You're welcome to stay as the others, if you wish. We now have the statements which I have exercised my discretion to allow to be read in the absence of the registered speakers. These statements will be read by Alison Webb, Governance and Members Officer. The first statement to be read is from Mr. Peter Cohn of Coggeshall, and his statement is in respect of Agenda Item 6, Braintree Cycling Strategy and Draft Cycling Strategy Implementation Plan 2021. Would you like to read the statement, Alison? Thank you,
Madam Chairman. This is the statement of Mr. Peter Cohn. I was fortunate to have been part of the Cycle Active City Conference a couple of weeks ago and was very struck by some of the modelling showing a potential 20% increase in cars over the next few years, even with a move to electric cars. In the recent report on gear change 1 year on, the Prime Minister says, "I support councils of all parties which are trying to promote cycling and bus use. And if you are going to oppose these schemes, you must tell us what your alternative is, because trying to squeeze more cars and delivery vans on the same roads and hoping for the best is not going to work." I agree, and this factor alone shows to me the absolute necessity for an ambitious cycling strategy. The second point would be about our society's unspoken assumption about who benefits from roads and who pays the cost. We assume that the roads belong and are paid for by motor vehicle users, but public spending on roads in 2021 was around 11 billion, and vehicle tax raised £6.5 billion. In fact, we all pay for roads, but the benefits are very unequally shared out, and drivers are privileged. The people who are disadvantaged are children, many older people, poorer people, and disabled people. In the 2011 census, 16.2% of Braintree residents did not own a car, but are still bearing the cost of pollution, accidents, noise, and congestion. I drive a car and benefit from it, but I also see that cycling is available to all. It democratises our roads and can benefit our whole population. A successful cycle strategy will challenge the dominance of drivers. My final point would be about investment in infrastructure. The massive investment in transport infrastructure made in the 19th century has benefited us for the last 150 years. Investment made now will benefit long into the future. Sadly, cycling has not been a priority. This strategy is an opportunity to rectify that. That's the end of the statement. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Rickey, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do have a response, if that's okay. I would firstly like to thank Mr Cohn for his comments and once again for his support within the Cycling Steering Group. I completely agree with the points that he has made. As referenced by Mr Cohn, the DFT document Gear Change 1 year on is a key reference for our strategy, and elements including behavioural change are incorporated into our implementation plan. Choosing to cycle and walk is a choice, and the results from our survey show that residents will cycle if there is a safe network. It has been vital to align the cycle strategy with the climate change strategy to help reach the low carbon future targets set within. Encouraging residents and visitors to take a more sustainable travel choice will ultimately maximise the decarbonisation of transport for our district. This strategy is targeted towards specific needs with an overarching goal to assist in tackling wider health issues, pollution, traffic congestion and inequalities in both age and ability. Moreover, widening opportunities for Braintree's youth population and lower socio-economic groups. Finally, we are committed to working with partners, including Essex County Council, to maximise investment in this strategy. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Rickey. The next statement to be read is from Mrs. Rosie Pearson, and her statement is in respect of agenda item number 5, Climate Change Strategy 2021 to 2030 and Initial Action Plan. Alison, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is the statement of Mrs. Rosie Pearson. I very much welcome the Council's preparation of a climate strategy and a cycling strategy and would like to thank all those involved. Well done. My question is, will there still be an opportunity for residents to influence the climate change strategy? For example, firstly, I believe that although the climate strategy talks quite rightly about reducing car use, it does not specifically state that unnecessary road building should be avoided. That should be specifically added to the climate strategy. Where there are references to flood management, the word natural needs to be added. And at the next stage of the plan, when monitoring targets are added, I believe that they should be specifically aligned for consistency with the excellent targets set out in the Essex Climate Commission. Finally, will there be a citizens' assembly? I am concerned that the working party is too small to be representative and that the range of experience is too narrow. It would be fantastic to host a citizens' assembly to ensure that this is a truly representative strategy. Thank you. Rosie Pearson, Pattiswick resident. That's the end of the statement. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Smith, would you like to reply to the statement or give a written response?
I will respond to one or two of the items and then follow it up with a written response, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
I would particularly make point on the plan where monitoring targets are added. Item 3.5 in the agenda quite clearly says that we need to link closely once Essex County Council has given its response to the Essex Climate Commission. We've made that very clear that we have to work as closely as possible together. And 2 points that sort of link into each other. Is there still an opportunity for residents to influence the climate change strategy? As we progress with new projects, there will be opportunities for members of the public to become involved in this. As for the Citizens' Assembly, I would like to remind people that we did a very extensive 8-week engagement that gave every person who lives within this district the opportunity to respond. So I think that in itself is far better than a Citizens' Assembly. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Smith. This statement concludes the public question time, and we'll now proceed to agenda item number 5, Climate Change Strategy 2021 to 2030 and Initial Action Plan. Can I ask everybody now if they would like to ask a question on the climate change strategy? If you could just indicate if you intend to do that, that would be helpful.
Chairman, could we just pause for one moment, please? It's only right and proper that Mrs. Smith is invited to set out the item first of all. And then once Mrs. Smith has presented the item, you then put the call out for all members to indicate that they wish to speak during the debate. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wish to propose to Council the report on the Climate Change Strategy 2021 to 2030 and initial action plan.
Right.
Chairman, would you like to remind members this is set out on pages 5 to 9 of the agenda, please?
This is set out on pages 5 to 9 of the agenda. I'm sorry, I've got a bit confused here. And if you would like Councillor Mrs. Smith to come to the table to speak. Is that okay, or would you rather stay there? I need to do this. What about that bit? When I'm asking about questions.
Yeah, but you're allowed to present the item and then second to it. Okay.
Councillor Mrs. Smith, please can you formally move the recommendation? No. Please can I remind you that before you make your speech, the recommendation must first be seconded.
I am formally recommending it, and then you will need a seconder.
Chairman, if it assists, Councillor Smith, you are formally moving the recommendations as set out in the agenda. Chairman, would you now please call for a seconder for the recommendations, and then Councillor Smith may then set out the report in detail. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will second.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Butland. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I now invite Councillor Mrs. Smith to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't propose to go through the item in detail because I'm sure all members have indeed read it and read it very carefully. But colleagues, we are here this evening at the culmination of 2 years' work on the follow-up to our previous climate local strategy and action plan from 2015. This climate change strategy and action plan is a much wider ranging plan, as this is not just about what Braintree District Council will do, but also our wider communities, and it provides us with a clear vision and a plan to move forward. Firstly, I must publicly thank the Climate Change Working Group members who are listed on page 6 of the report. I do not think any of us realise the enormity of the challenge ahead. We had many meetings and presentations, which meant a great deal of homework for everyone, but their enthusiasm never flagged. Also, my profound thanks to our officers and staff, too many to mention by name, who, despite doing the day job, were often frontline staff dealing with the COVID pandemic while also working on this strategy. My admiration, respect, and thanks to them is boundless. The strategy has been updated following extensive engagements with our residents, businesses, partners, parish and town councils, and of course our members. As a result of feedback from the engagement process, we have strengthened our plans around the built environment, and we have created a new theme to highlight the importance to us of supporting our businesses to adapt to climate change and the development of our green economy as a district. We have been in close contact with colleagues at Essex County Council and have been involved with the work of the Essex Climate Action Commission to ensure that our plans are moving in the same direction and we can get the best value from public investment, and we will continue to do this as we deliver our strategy. Members will have seen the initial action plan as I sent it to you informally for review last month, but tonight is the first time we will be considering it formally. This is an initial action plan for a reason. We know that there is still work to be done to fully develop some business cases and to understand investment and outcomes. And we know also that some of these actions will need to be revised once we have seen Essex County Council's response to the Essex Climate Action Commission and that the Environment Bill has been passed. But we also know that time is of the essence, and our communities want to see not just what we want to achieve, but how we're going to do it. This strategy gives us a start, and we will do further work to refine the plan, taking these things into account, and also to develop targets and smart objectives with our Climate Change Working Group, which we will bring back to you for consideration. Many actions in the plan go hand in hand with making the Braintree district a more environmentally friendly and pleasant place to live, to add to our long-running and highly successful Green Heart of Essex project by reducing waste, increasing recycling, improving air quality and providing public spaces which are more people-focused, greener, biodiverse and more sustainable. The actions will also address the impact of climate change and building resilience within communities across the district. You will note that in section 4 of the report, we set out the financial implications of the strategy and a plan for how we will progress projects and business case decisions to ensure that we balance speed of delivery with oversight and scrutiny of managing public finances. This strategy will require significant long-term investment, and we will need to seek out and identify innovative and collaborative ways to finance climate change programs and investment, and to support partners who require investment to realise projects that will contribute towards objectives without adding a significant burden to the taxpayer. We should all be clear, this is one of the biggest challenges to affect our society, and success will require commitment from all of us, working together across our communities at a local, national and international level. Having a strategy and action plan takes a significant and further step forward to meet our climate change goals by 2030. This is a challenge for all of our community, and strong engagement will be the key to the successful delivery of climate change objectives. One of the key responses from our engagement, from those filling in the online survey and the schools that we engage with, was the interest from our community in their green and open spaces around them and the importance of trees and plants to them. It is therefore with great pleasure tonight that I am able to announce that we will be launching, along with our strategy, alongside a new project which will be able to involve the whole community, from our youngest nature enthusiasts in our schools to our parish and town councils and community groups. I am delighted to announce this evening that this council is investing £30,000 in community tree and bulb planting project, which will enable the planting of 13,000 native trees and 74,000 bulbs across the district, to add to the many that we have planted over the last 18 years. The community tree planting programme provides us with an opportunity to support the celebration of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee through the Queen's Green Canopy Project, which means that our communities will be contributing to a Commonwealth-wide programme to honour the legacy of our Queen and benefit future generations. We will be launching this project tomorrow, and groups will be able to apply for packs of bulbs and/or tree whips from this week. They will need to find land and secure the landowner's permission, and the bulbs and trees will be supplied from the end of October in time for the main planting season. The recipients must be in the position to keep watering the trees and tending them until they are well established. This is not the only tree planting project we have been or will be involved with. We have recently planted 350 trees at Horizon 120 and will continue to commit to plant trees at new employment sites that we look to develop, continuing to look at how our corporate objectives can be combined to increase their collective value to our residents and businesses. We will also be looking at opportunities to further plant trees and bulbs on council-owned land as part of a separate project, and we'll be looking at planting some mature trees with town and parish councils to celebrate the Jubilee next year, as indeed we did at the previous Jubilee. It's not all about what we can do directly. We are working with landowners to see how they can be supported to manage their land sustainably, identifying rewilding and tree planting schemes. And we are aware of a potentially exciting proposal in the district, which amongst other ideas would see a large number of trees planted for carbon offsetting. We are having discussions with them to explore opportunities to support the scheme, and if it is viable, we will bring it back to council. You will note from our action plan that it is not just about trees and bulbs, but improving biodiversity more generally. This will include a project to plant wildflower seeds across the district. We are also consulting widely with town and parish councils in relation to the maintenance of our own land to improve biodiversity through changing the frequency and the way we cut as well as planting schemes. However, everyone who is lucky enough to have a garden can start now. Sadly, Britain has an obsession with closely cut green sward with no weeds. That means wildflowers as lawns. Gardens cover thousands of acres, and if everyone allowed just part of their garden to grow as nature would like, the appearance of oxeye daisies, clover and dandelions, to name just a few, would give a helping hand to insects such as bees that we need to pollinate many crops and thus birds and mammals. We cannot continue to abuse the natural world without it biting back. Links to organisations such as the RSPB, Wildlife Trust, Woodland Trust, Royal Horticultural Society, Bug Life, Plant Life, etc. will become available where advice can be found to make your garden cheaply and easily a haven for the natural world. This is just one part of our overall strategy, and we have lots of work ahead of us. And we will continue to identify innovative and creative ways to meet this global challenge. To finish off, I would like to quote a small part of a monologue that Professor Carl Sagan said when Voyager 1 launched in 1990, turned when it was 4 billion miles from Earth, and photographed the small blue dot. The Earth is the only world known, so far, to harbour life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit yet? Yes, settle not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we have ever known. Madam Chairman, I move the recommendation on item 2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mrs. Smith. Before I invite members to indicate whether they would like to speak, please can I remind members that they can only speak once on this subject. As I advised at the start of this meeting, I would be grateful if speeches are concise and to the point. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Right. Just keep them up there for a bit longer. Okay. Right, put them down now. Thank you very much.
Would you like to start with just Councillor Range?
Pardon?
Would you like to start with Councillor Range?
Yes, I can do. Councillor Wrench, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I would just like to offer my full support for this climate change strategy that we're here debating tonight. I'd like to thank officers. I feel that it clearly lays out the priorities and it is very easy to understand the direction that we are moving in. Climate change is everybody's responsibility. Everyone across our communities needs to play their part. For you and I, Madam Chairman, some of these changes will be habitual changes, and changing our habits can often be the most difficult. Everyone needs to take responsibility to make sustainable and lifelong changes, but what we really need is a generational change. And I believe that young people, and subsequently the children of our young people, will be key to this. I think it's fair to say, though, that our younger generation are more engaged and enthusiastic about environmental issues than the generations that we have seen before, so we must build on this. I believe we need to continue to engage in our youth to ensure they can continue to care about these issues. I'm very pleased to see over social media this week, again, our Green Heart champions being celebrated. The children that I have seen get absolute pleasure being out and about in our communities, making actual change and seeing that they are making a difference. What may be seen as a big change to you and I, though, needs to be the norm for our future generations. And I hope that our council can provide further education, engagement with our young people, so we are able to achieve our high ambitions. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wrench. Councillor Everard?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm pleased to see that there is more emphasis being put on recycling, but we have to find a solution to stop landfill and exporting waste. I'm not saying that we are doing that ourselves, but we've got to find a solution for all this. Thank you. I'll keep it concise.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've been part of the working group associated with the production of this document. It has been a long and complex journey of evidence gathering, assessment and consultation to consider what can realistically be achieved. There is no doubt that we all want a pleasant and more environmentally friendly place to live. And the question is, how do we get there? Where do we start? This document shows tremendous commitment and willingness to work collaboratively with stakeholders, communities and organisations to achieve this. It demonstrates a commitment for ongoing community engagement and to support our residents and businesses to adapt and work together to reduce their emissions and limit the impact of climate change in a greener, cleaner, sustainable way. We all know that climate change is a big problem. So big that sometimes we want to put our head in our hands because we are creatures of habit. But if we continue to do what we have always done, we will only get what we've always got. So we have to change, and I believe that people can make a huge difference by changing some of the smaller things in their life. And having chaired a scrutiny review into woodlands recently, I'm absolutely delighted to hear our Cabinet members' announcement for the new project to distribute tree whips and bulbs across the district from the £500,000 budget that has been set aside for climate change initiatives. I'm sure that parishes and groups in my northern part of the district will take full advantage. It also sends a clear message from a council that wants to lead the way forward by example, and I therefore support this document wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Sandham.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just to echo what others have said, it's clear a huge amount of work has gone into this plan and there's lots of positive ideas, and it's great to hear about the engagement with schools and other stakeholders. It's also really good to read that a communications and engagement plan is going to be developed to support the delivery of the strategy. And I think it would be really helpful if, as part of this plan, there was more communication on the reasons for the reductions in mowing as part of the Verge trials. I went and saw a really good example at a churchyard in Kelvedon last week, and they've just got some very simple signs up saying this area is left unmown to encourage wildflowers. So just, I think things like that and publishing photos of the verges would just help people sort of understand the reasons why, because it is a big change for some people. And things like publicising the fact that meadowlands support 8 times more wildlife than short mown grass would be helpful. Then just one area about the Verge Trail. I think currently the plan is to leave the grass cuttings on the verges, and the advice from Plant Life and the RHS, as I understand it, is that if you leave them, it will suppress the wildflowers in future years and the grasses will become more dominant, so less biodiversity will be achieved. So hopefully that's something that can be looked at as the strategy evolves, and any extra costs of removing and composting the grass could be balanced out by the reduced number of times that it needs to be mowed. And it will be really good to see, as you've mentioned, progress on looking at more areas for wildflowers to be planted in the district. I think there's huge potential there for change. Then one last point I would like to make is I'm not sure the strategy fully reflects the Braintree as a rural district with a strong farming history and high quality agricultural land. So in my view, and in the view of many residents, our farmers, our farmland and our rural heritage need to be protected much more against the pressure to develop housing, roads, incinerators and so on greenfield sites. Longer term, protecting our farmland and our greenfield sites will also make us much more resilient to the effects of climate change. So I hope this need for protection will be more directly reflected as the climate change strategy evolves.
Thank you, Councillor Sandham. Councillor James Abbott.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I don't know if it's possible, first of all, to declare an additional NPI, in that all of the G&I group members are acquainted to 2 of the speakers, Mr. Staines and Mrs. Pearson. So, if possible, I'd like to make that declaration on behalf of all of us. We welcome the work that's gone into this strategy, and that there will be an annual review of the action plan and a refresh when the outcomes from the Environment Bill are known. The Green and Independent Group proposed additional funding on top of the £500,000 budget that's stated in the report for community woodlands, and it was disappointing that the administration turned this down, even while it would have come from capital funds already available and would have not have affected the council tax. But now that the G&I motion on tree planting and community woodlands has been approved unanimously, we were very pleased to see at the July Full Council, we await with interest to see proposals on that front. And we do welcome, and I think it has to be treated separately because community woodlands is a different scale, the announcement made tonight by the Cabinet member on community tree and bulb planting, and very much hope that parish councils, as other speakers have said, do take that up and get involved with the project. The forward to the strategy from the Cabinet member states, and I quote, that the climate crisis is one of the most significant issues to face our society, environment and planet. And she went on to quote Carl Sagan, in fact using a quote that I use in my Facebook profile because I think it's so good. Yes, all of that's right, but therefore we cannot allow the good work of so many young and old people who already contribute in so many ways, as others have referenced, to be reversed by a number of things which have not really been mentioned tonight yet, but only in passing. Firstly, this council, the administration of this council, proposes building a major new road through open countryside in this district, namely the A120 Route D, which is specifically designed to promote traffic growth. And as has been raised by others, the elephant in the room on climate change in this district is the massive waste incinerator proposed for Rivenhall Airfield, which at capacity would produce around 600,000 tonnes of CO2 per annum every year of its operation, burning waste 24/7, plus generating over 400 HG movements a day. It would be the largest single source of industrial carbon dioxide emissions in the entire county of Essex. And as one of the public speakers made, we believe, and have good grounds to believe, that the operators may be proposing to make it even larger. A large proportion of the waste to be incinerated would be trucked in from outside this county, and nearly all of it certainly from outside the district. Surely we have to stop this district being known as home to one of the largest incinerators in the UK. And we're not sure what the administration's position actually is. Councillor Schmidt referred to page 25, but actually what it says, and I quote, is the District Council shares some of the concerns of residents about the incinerator. I ask in all honesty, is that because some members of the administration actually tacitly support it? We believe that some of them may do. The Essex Climate Action Commission report was published in July and includes many welcome and quite ambitious goals, but we are a very long way from achieving them in this district and in Essex as a whole. And almost all of the change is still in the wrong direction. Greenfield development taking productive farmland, as Councillor Sandham's just referred to, the loss of trees and hedges on development sites. Nothing's been said tonight about, yes, we're planting new trees, but look at what is happening on development sites. Jimpson's in Witham, which I'll have a lot more to say about at the October Full Council, almost all of the trees removed, including around the periphery of the site, on a development which Braintree District Council permitted. The lion's share of transport funding is still going into increasing road capacity, and there is ongoing failure to deal with energy wastage, plus inexplicably, and I do accept the point Councillor Schmidt made that this is largely a national issue, the lack of ability of planning authorities like Braintree to require renewable energy and new developments. The pie chart and graph on page 17 of the strategy reflects many of these policy failures, particularly in the transport sector, where emissions have not fallen at all since 2005. BDC as an entity is doing better. Its own emissions have come down. They've roughly halved, but we're still a long way to go to reach net zero. One of the areas where we've stalled is recycling, which hasn't really shifted from around 50% for a decade. That's not been helped by the failure of the County Council's waste strategy. We should be aiming for at least 70% recycling and composting. That's achievable, and other authorities in Essex have got there. The strategy has very little to say about energy wastage and harm to ecosystems through light pollution at night, despite me asking for it to do so. There are many good things in the action plan that the Council already does or is planning to do. Water saving initiatives, tackling fuel poverty, electric charging facilities which are being rolled out quickly, advice and initiatives on waste and recycling, the Verges trial, which has been discussed by many people, which I strongly support, but it is clearly not enough. Climate change is fundamentally about science, and the science is that emissions are still rising, and they're expected to rise globally for at least another decade. We in the UK have to make, as a developed nation, have to make radical cuts to our greenhouse gas emissions to avoid further temperature increases and the subsequent impacts. So whilst we are doing many good things, the big ticket items, allowing developers to destroy trees, promoting major roads, backing airport expansion, as a Cabinet member did quite recently, and not being 100% against the biggest industrial source of CO2 in Essex is simply not enough. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Climate change globally is an issue where we all need to be aware. This is not a flavour of the month, but an issue that affects us all, and the option to do nothing is not an option. This authority has for many years introduced various initiatives and activities, and the climate change strategy shows just how much work has been done and being proposed. I'm particularly pleased to see that the tree planting initiative within the district is to continue. I well remember spending time in inclement weather in the company of the Cabinet Member for Environment in planting saplings and hedgings which have subsequently grown, and for some reason unbeknown to me we always managed to plant on days when it rained. Good for the plants, but not good for us. Madam Chairman, not only do I feel that these actions help to fight climate change, but also to have a secondary benefit in enhancing the local environment. I should just like to mention the work of the Witham Tree Group, who have planted around 500 trees within Witham, together with an initial watering plan, and are to be applauded for their work. The Climate Change Strategy of 2021-2030 and Initial Action Plan, as shown in tonight's agenda, together with the recommendations, will, I am sure, enable this Council to go forward to develop an action plan to ensure all Council functions and decisions is in line with the shift to carbon neutral by 2030. Madam Chairman, I will be supporting the Council's Climate Change Strategy 2021 to 2030 and the Initial Action Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As a geographer, town planner and project planner, and as somebody who has campaigned on a number of environmental issues, I would personally like to quite warmly endorse the broad thrust of this strategy. I think it has the potential to break new ground for our council. I'm sure that it is intended as a starting point to be specified, monitored and built on as a platform, not as a tablet that's going to prescriptively try to solve the problem in its own rights. I'd just like to make one comment and one suggestion. The comment is about consultation, and I accept, as my colleague Councillor Schmidt said, there's been a big consultation exercise, but I don't think that precludes the idea of citizens' assemblies. Citizens' assemblies are a very good way of building consensus, engaging individuals and community groups, and indeed taking some of the rancour out of what can be contentious public policy issues. One example is the Citizens' Assembly held in Ireland on gay marriage, equal marriage, and as you can imagine, in good old Catholic Ireland, that was a matter of some considerable controversy. The Citizens' Assembly didn't solve the issue, but it was one of the platforms on which Ireland became the first country in the world to pass a referendum on the matter. My suggestion, and it's a brief one, is concerning the references to monitoring and measuring on page 36. I notice in the summary of the report there's an available reserve under climate change of £343,000 unallocated in the strategy. The section on measuring and monitoring is not terribly specific about how it'll actually be done in practice, and without real-time data, I'm not sure we'll be able to know where we're going. My suggestion is, could Braintree Council please consider having a number of air quality monitoring sites, for example, along busy main roads, at the sites of major new developments, including, I would suggest, the Rivenhall incinerator. When I asked the Environment Agency if they were going to put monitoring there, they said, oh no, although they're the independent quasi-regulator, they said, we don't need to do any such thing. We'll have a look at the figures put out by the developer. But, you know, my comment is not just about the incinerator, it's about we do need to have real-time data to monitor change, to monitor where our policy is succeeding and where it needs tweaking. But I would like to say on a non-partisan basis, I think this document represents a good first stage and gives us a real platform for success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I saw the content and the presentation of this strategy document, I was extremely impressed. Having not sat on the climate change working group but aware of its activity, to see what's been covered in this paper is well, it's incredibly thorough, given this is a starting point. And I think it does good credit to the officers involved, the lead member, Councillor Schmidt, the members of that working group, and also the thorough process that followed with the public consultation, which, you know, as I understand it, every single response was reviewed, and where possible or where needed, it was contributed into this document. As a mid-tier local authority, I think it's key that we remember what our primary function is, and that is to deliver services to our residents. A number of services are obviously directly linked to the environment in which we all live. So refuse collection is an obvious one, the maintenance of public spaces, and also the commercial opportunities that we are able to deliver within the district. That one in particular is key to environmental side of things, because it stops people having to travel greater distances for work. And we've got a good demonstration of how commercial development in the area can link nicely with environmental considerations in Horizon 120. We've incorporated strong environmental credentials into that development, whilst it's in the district on the doorstep of our residents, hopefully providing long-term and secure high-quality jobs. Our ability, though, to deliver in other non-primary areas is key, but it is, of course, limited by financial constraints. We must continue to pursue an environmental agenda, but we must remember financial prudence. We should avoid committing funds that weaken our ability to deliver those services which are our primary function, are key to our residents, and actually many of them have a link to environmental conditions in our district anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Thorogood.
Thank you. I'd just like to refer to page 7 of the report, or 17 of the agenda, where it does mention that for Braintree District to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2030, it would need to reduce all emissions by 576,000. Yeah, 576,000 tonnes of CO2. Unfortunately, if we achieve all that, that's by 2030. The Riverland incinerator at the moment is due to start burning waste at the end of 2025, and it will actually produce more CO2 than that. It would be 600,000 tonnes of CO2. So even if we do all of that, all our work would be undone at the stroke of that incinerator opening. I do welcome the trees that are being planted, 13,000 trees, but again, just to put it into perspective, 13,000 trees is a drop in the ocean. 3.5 million mature trees would be needed to offset the Rivernoil incinerator. I've just got an analogy which I'd like to share with you. There's 100 people on a bus and it's heading for a cliff edge. The cliff edge is climate change catastrophe. The bus is the incinerator. 2 of the passengers are screaming at the driver to stop, to slam on the brakes. But the driver does nothing and carries on. About half of the people on the bus know the vehicle is heading for the cliff edge and that they should do something about it. But they're too busy or too entrenched in their own lives or too addicted to the status quo to help the 2 people who are screaming. Meanwhile, they're still screaming, begging the driver to slam on the brakes, but he doesn't. Then you've got the rest of the people on the bus. Some have no idea what's going on. Some have an idea, but just don't care. But then you've got the most dangerous group of all. Those that know something needs to be done, but because they've got a vested interest in not caring, they stick their fingers in their ears and sing la 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 and pretend not to hear, while pretending there's no cliff edge, or saying that buses used to go over cliff edges all the time during the Ice Age and that there's nothing to worry about. The brilliant thing is, if we did slam on the brakes right now, we've still got time to bring the bus to a skidding halt and stop it going over the cliff. Climate change can't be fixed without inconvenience, and the sooner we realise that, the better. Waste incineration is a seemingly simple way of getting rid of waste, but it has dire consequences. Catastrophic global warming, climate change consequences. Waste incineration must be stopped, and BDC must do far more than it's doing to lobby the Tory government, to lobby Essex County Council, to stop the Rivenall incinerator, but also new incinerators all over the country. I believe there's about 50 to 90 already in burning waste, but there's another 50 in the planning pipeline. Think globally, act locally was an old Greenpeace phrase from about 30, 40 years ago. The biggest thing we can do to help stop climate change is to stop the Rivenall incinerator. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorogood. Councillor Sweer.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sorry for the slight delay there. Madam Chairman, I think the thrust from the floor this evening has basically been very good in support of the climate change. And I think Councillor Wrench and Councillor Gowd made some very good points, as have others. And I think what's important here is that it's good to know that Braintree District Council, over time, has actually already been acting and delivering some of these climate initiatives. We have quite a lot of kilowatts of solar power on our roofs across Braintree District Estate. We have, through Councillor Smith's keenness on our open parkland, had lots of tree planting and shrub planting over time as well. And of course, very recently, I think Braintree District has been very good at producing and installing electrical charging points across our estate as well, and also that facility for our health facilities and sporting facilities as well. So that's really good. I would just like to say that my thanks also to the climate team working on this. I think it's an extremely good report, and I like the visuals as well. And obviously, I think the important point here is that it's going to be all about collaboration and enabling, and it's going to be not just at local authority level, but at county level. But this has also got to filter out and be taken on board by our businesses and our communities and individuals as well. So overall, as Councillor Smith said, this is a living document that will change, and I think there will be lots of innovation come forward as well. And with the expertise and the carry on of the climate group as well, I'm sure there will be interesting solutions and ideas coming forward. But overall, I think this is a very well produced document, and I think it's, from the climate point of view as well, on a local and county level, this is going to be very good. And I'd like to commend the officers as well with their collaboration with other authorities, including Essex, in getting together, getting this expertise together and ideas, because this is helping us all towards climate and our move to net zero. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweer. Councillor Ball.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'd like to support this excellent, well thought through document, particularly as it is a very living document. I'd just like to draw attention to page 46 and 47 of the agenda. Two of the sections on there in the action plan talk about creating and adopting new SPDs, sustainability, planning, supplementary planning documents to promote sustainability and also energy conservation. I'm particularly interested in the sustainability, and also on page 47 it mentions maximising the installation of SUDs, sustainable urban drainage schemes. Now, this is particularly important because at this moment in time we're about to cover our countryside in many more houses, roads, footpaths, parking spaces, etc. And although we don't perhaps have the opportunity to mandate, we could, through the supplementary planning documents, encourage as far as possible that every single surface, hard surface that's introduced is a permeable, a permeable surface. There are many modern solutions to this, many products that are available on the market now to create hard but fully free draining surfaces. And of course you go right down to the kind of thing that the National Trust do on their cycle paths, which is to make them as natural as possible, not use any artificial materials. I just wondered whether this policy, if we're able to promote that, could be used even on the any new cycle paths that we create. Anyway, I'd like to thoroughly support this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tom Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm very pleased to speak during this debate as we bring forward the climate change strategy and the initial action plan. And it's important to consider how this agenda can be linked to creating new opportunities and jobs in an ever-changing landscape, with economic recovery being key to bouncing back from the pandemic. Working with partners, I look forward to Braintree District Council playing a full part in advising and continuing to advise businesses in how to reduce waste and improve recycling. But I know colleagues are incredibly keen to ensure we play our part in supporting the skills required to stimulate the green economy. As a district council, we have always gone above and beyond basic statutory functions with this agenda. Seizing the opportunities of innovative construction, waste reduction, and high-tech manufacturing and engineering to support a renewable energy supply chain on the East Coast will be vital to our local productivity going forward. That skill set and can-do spirit is present in our part of Essex, but we need to play our part in working with employers and our excellent learning establishments to help that agenda move forward and focus on the opportunities this agenda presents. 3 years ago, with the need to build houses and a chronic shortage of construction skills, our investment in the iConstruct project was a bold intervention for a council of our size. Since then, that investment in developing the physical hub, built to BREEAM standards, and the quality of support that is currently being given to the industry in developing new products and services is demonstrating how sound that investment was. Cultivating the production lines of the future that entrench the sustainability credentials into house design, not only meeting the climate change objectives, but unlocking much needed opportunity for our fellow residents. We can pinpoint opportunities that have grasped in the past, but we're very conscious through this climate change strategy and action plan that we must be on the front foot to grasp those opportunities in the future, whether it's with other partners, including the County Council, or on our own. And I think we all look forward to that challenge in the period ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to pay particular attention to a small part of this climate change action plan, but it is something that I feel is rather important. On page 42 of the agenda, it reads, Continue with campaigns to raise the profile of local food producers by promoting shop, local and seasonal foods, including plant-based substitutes. It is well evidenced that going plant-based or vegan is the single biggest thing that us as individuals can do to impact climate change and our environment. A plant-based diet uses less land, uses less water and emits less CO2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Butland, you have not spoken in the debate. As the seconder of the motion, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Madam Chairman, members, it's been a very good debate and by and large a fair degree of common cause across the whole chamber. I think, however, there are some difficult decisions that will need to be taken in the years to come if we're to make this document a live document and to produce actual results. I wouldn't want anyone to go away from here tonight and think, well, that's the strategy done, let's move on to something else. I'd like to congratulate first Councillor Smith for her persistence on this, not in the last year or 2 years, but throughout her political career. In fact, I bow to both her and Councillor Abbott on their consistency with this being a guiding principle of their involvement in politics. And again, I would also add my support to the officers, led by Sherry Root and her team, for the enormous amount of work that they have done in what has been unusual circumstances, to say the least. I welcome the tree initiative that's been announced tonight by Councillor Mrs Schmidt. It means that this district will be playing a significant part in the Queen's Green Canopy to mark her Platinum Jubilee, and I'm delighted that the Green Party, who are not in favour of the monarchy, but will support this Green initiative here. In terms of resources will be key. One of the differences between being in opposition and being in government is that you cannot in government be a one-trick pony. We will have to, collectively as a council, take some very difficult decisions as to where funding will come from if we are to pursue this policy. And that may mean that some treasured schemes, which we all have, may have to take second place if that is what we decide we should do. Councillor Mrs Sandon made a very important point, I think, about farmland being protected. And she used examples of housing and roads. There's another difficult decision. How far do we protect farmland from solar panels, which are part of the Green Initiative, or indeed rewilding or retreeing? That is another difficult issue that will have to be tackled, and Councillor Mrs Smith and I have already had quite a lively discussion on where one should put trees. The other thing is that we will need, without doubt, to win the involvement of the community. To talk about the council, actually the council, it can facilitate, it can encourage, but it will be individual people and what they do that will make that significant difference. And to get that, we've got to have people on board. And I'm afraid some of the actions last week in this county by people that I could only describe as climate change terrorists is not helping us to win that battle. We have to win hearts and minds. Whether we can go as far as Councillor Wallace and get everyone who's a vegan, I don't know. But that is the task that we have in front of us. And it's not just particular generations, because I think across the whole of the generational scale, there are people who very much support this. A lot of us older ones know that whilst we may not individually be affected very much in the rest of our lifetime, certainly the lifetime of our children and grandchildren will be extremely affected. So I want to say that I think we have made a start. No one in the administration is saying that this is the end. It is very much the beginning. No one in the administration in any way thinks that this will be something that is easy, or indeed something that we can do without having to take some very, very difficult decisions on funding. And as we come to budgets and budget making over the next few years, I'll be looking at all members, on whichever side of the chamber they are, in terms of, if this is the priority, something else has to be a second or a third or a fourth priority. And that will be the challenge for us. So, Madam Chairman, as I say, I congratulate Councillor Schmidt and the whole of the team on what has been produced. I think it's a good start. I think we can work well with Essex County Council as well on their plans. But of course, the other thing is that climate change doesn't recognise district council boundaries. And to think that if something is causing an emission in one place, it has to be compensated within those boundaries is a nonsense. And we need to make that quite clear. And on the question of the incinerator, as Councillor Abbott quite rightly said, this is about science. I have been reading quite a bit recently about the city of Vienna, which has a significant amount of incineration. 6 incinerators it has in the city of Vienna. But it uses that incineration to produce heat and light for its housing. If it's about the science, I want to hear a bit more about that. And when people talk about the science, I would like to hear them put both sides of what the scientific evidence is. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Fine, okay.
I'd like Councillor Butland to retract his statement in regard to the Green Party being anti-monarchy. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I must refer the councillor to the Green Party policy PR 600, public administration. It's your policy. The Green Party believes that the hereditary principle should have no place in our government. So I will not retract that because it's straight out of the Green Party policies. I do recognise, Madam Chairman, that they have hundreds of policies and it will be difficult for their members to keep up with it.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Schmidt, as the proposer of the recommendation, would you like to reply to the speeches? But please don't introduce new matters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Butland has picked up many of the comments that I would have made. Just Councillor Walsh, in case you're not aware, we do have air quality monitoring points throughout the district and have had them for many years. And they're always being looked at to see if we need more and in different places. So that is something we've, as I said, had for many, many years and will continue to do. And again, as technology changes and things become better, then again, we would be looking at making any changes necessary. I think, really, that everything else was picked up by Councillor Butland. Councillor Abbott, I don't do Facebook, so I had no idea that you were also into Professor Sagan, so I'm delighted. If I'd have had time, I would have recited the whole of his monologue, and I would strongly urge members to do it if you haven't looked at it before, because the whole thing is absolutely brilliant. And when you think it was said in 1970, it's even more relevant today. Councillor Wrench, you are absolutely right. It is the young people. It is their future. We haven't done any of this deliberately. We weren't aware. So, you know, sometimes when you hear some enthusiasts blaming us terribly, we didn't know. But now we do know. We're trying to do something about it. But yes, the young people, and having recently been at a function at your school in particular, I know how enthusiastic your young people are, and we will continue to do everything we can to work with the young people of our district. They are the future, it is their future, and their enthusiasm and understanding, quite frankly, puts some of the older generation to shame. And long may they embarrass parents and grannies and granddads, because they are actually right. Councillor Garrett mentioned, yes, we're creatures of habit. It's very, very difficult to change our habits, but change indeed we must. But I think everything else that I was going to mention has in fact been mentioned, Madam Chairman, and so I would like to formally make the recommendations. To approve the Climate Change Strategy 2021 to 2030 as set out in Appendix 1 and the initial Climate Change Action Plan as set out in Appendix 2. To approve the decision-making process set out in paragraph 4.3 for individual projects to deliver the action plan. To agree that the Cabinet Member for Environment, with the support of the Climate Change Working Group, will develop a monitoring and reporting plan, including key targets, and bring this back to Council for approval. Madam Chairman, I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Right, thank you, members. The recommendation set out on page 5 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please indicate. Unanimous. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the recommendation has been approved. Thank you, members. We'll now deal with agenda item number 6, Braintree Cycling Strategy and Draft Cycling Strategy Implementation Plan 2021. Members, this item is set out on pages 80 to 161 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Frankie Rickey, Cabinet Member for Communities, to come to the Speaker's table. Thank you. Councillor Rickey, please can you formally move the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'd like to formally move the recommendations set out on pages 81 of your agenda under paragraph 2, 2.1 and 2.2. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Rickey. Councillor Rickey has moved the recommendations set out on page 81 of the agenda. Please can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Mrs Spray, do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to speak immediately after Councillor Ritchie has presented his paper. Thank you.
I now invite Councillor Rickey to speak on the matter.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members. I am proud and pleased to finally introduce to you this evening the draft cycling strategy and implementation plan, and hope we can agree on the recommendations set out on pages 81 under section 2.1 and 2.2 of your agenda. This draft cycling strategy has been the work of a group who have represented the community, businesses and cycling enthusiasts across the district, as well as having cross-party involvement from across this council. I would like to take a moment to thank the steering group members, Councillors James Abbott, Councillors Miss Jackie Pell, Councillor David Mann, Councillor Dean Wallace, and Officers Dominic Collins, Neil Jones, Louise Flavel and Nicola Murphy for their time, support and contributions. I would also like to give a special thank you to Peter Cohn and Chris McCann, who as members of the public with more than a keen passion for cycling have helped immensely with giving advice on the draft proposals. Over the last 6 months, we have researched national and local policies and schemes and have identified the priorities that we need to focus on. This led to the production of a detailed draft strategy that we sent out for public engagement. We had a tremendous response, with over 680 replies from businesses, parish and town councils, cycling and outdoor groups and residents themselves. A clear trend emerged from those responses, namely that we as an authority should be making safer cycling, sustainable travel to tackle climate change and connecting rural and urban areas a priority. Whilst we may not be the Transport Authority and traditionally have not led on cycling projects, we feel that this is a crucial area of work to enable us to meet our objectives in relation to climate change, sustainable transport in our growth and local plan, and support people to live healthy and active lives. I make no apology for the ambition that's detailed in our implementation plan and strategy. This is an area we can ill afford to ignore and we must deliver. We will work closely with our communities and local businesses to achieve this, and we will foster existing relationships with Essex County Council as the local transport authority to assist us and collaborate in its delivery where and when required. By setting out our intent to increase cycling across the district, this partnership approach will be vital in making this viable and achievable. Madam Chairman, our aim is for this strategy and implementation plan to be the inception of a major cultural change in our district's views and a complete modal shift in attitudes to how we see the future of travel. To make this work, we must all want to give serious consideration to reducing unnecessary single-car journeys, getting on a bike for commuting, cycling for short journeys and fitness, and making use of what the strategy sets out to deliver. Without this change, our strategy is in vain. Now, it's not simply a case of laying cycle paths across great swathes of the district. We have to consider safety, utilisation, costs and overall benefits. But to that end, we don't have an endless pot of funds to use either. So part of the strategy and implementation plan sets out how we will need to secure funding, backing and resource to plan and deliver each project. Some areas we will consider for this is Section 106 and grant funding, etc. A current example is, I'm pleased to advise, 2 cycling projects are already in the planning stage through the Welcome Back Fund and the Industrial Improvement Fund, totalling an investment of £90,000. And I will keep members updated on the progress of this. Some of the plan identifies existing infrastructure and seeks to make quick but lasting improvements. These will be among our first priorities in getting the implementation plan off the ground, with safety being at the heart of a number of those we can deliver in the next year or so. Madam Chairman, I have set out what I believe is a milestone strategy in this authority's history, along with the climate change strategy this evening. We have an opportunity to start, create and leave amazing legacies for years to come. This is a living and agile strategy, the beauty of which means we are not tethered in our ambition. Finally, again, I'd like to thank those involved for their work and contribution, the respondents to the engagement and consultation, officers and the steering group. Just quickly touching on the steering group, I'm pleased to say that at our last meeting to discuss the presentation of this strategy this evening, the group agreed unanimously to stay formed when I asked. I am grateful and excited for the thought of what we can influence and deliver together. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ricky. Before I invite members to indicate whether they would like to speak, please can I remind members that they may only speak once in this debate. As I advised at the start of the meeting, I would be grateful if speeches are concise. Yeah, I would like to, do any members wish to speak? Can you keep your hands up? Thank you.
Would you like to start with Mrs Spray, then,
I'm going to.
Then Councillor Abbott, please.
Right, thank you. Councillor Spray.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I very much... I carry on?
We do apologise. We're just going to investigate what that siren is. For the time being, would Mrs Gray like to continue with her speech? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've never had quite such a reception as that when I started speaking. Anyway, I very much welcome the strategy and do appreciate the amount of work that's gone into producing this document, both from my cabinet colleague, the group, and officers. They've had a great deal to do because they've been producing this at the same time as the climate change strategy. I think it's entirely appropriate for this authority to introduce it now, and you know it's being brought forward this evening at the same time as the climate change strategy, and the two things are intertwined in some respects. I have to confess, Madam Chairman, that I myself have not sat on a bicycle for many, many years, and I doubt that I would add anything at all to road safety if I were to do so now. So, you know, there we are, but it can only be a good thing if more people do ride bicycles. It's good for the environment and it's great for keeping fit and healthy. Now, of course, if you're going to ride a bicycle, you need to know that it's safe to do so. And it is important that we encourage the development of cycleways on and around new developments and around the district between towns and villages. So talking for a minute with my planning and infrastructure hat on, one of the best ways to achieve cycleways is via Section 106 agreements. We are seeing this increasingly, especially where medium and large developers enter into pre-application discussions with officers. It's a really good opportunity to secure funding early on. And as a local planning authority, we need to encourage this growth in safe cycling for residents, both current and future users. I do want to say, Chairman, and remind everyone that some cycleways are more complex than others, and some are also more financially challenging. That shouldn't be forgotten. There are sometimes significant costs involved. I'm pleased to say that in my ward, the proposed EC2K cycleway, as it's known, is looking more achievable than some. And you heard that from a speaker in public speaker time earlier. This particular cycleway is intended to run from Earlscombe to Kelvedon, and thanks to the strong group of people managing the project and also with the assistance of several local landowners, it is making progress. Quite a long way to go yet, but it's very welcome. Not all cycleways are going to be as straightforward as this one, and I'm not by any means saying that this is an easy one to achieve, but it is looking a little more likely than some. So all in all, Chairman, this strategy is to be applauded, and I do hope it will receive unanimous support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I welcome the cycling strategy and join with Councillor Ricky in thanking all those involved. It's been a very constructive process, and the consultation response levels were encouraging relative to similar consultations. The top two priorities which emerged from the consultation are absolutely the right ones. Number one, to create coherent networks, and two, to secure the funding to do it. It's very succinct, direct, and that's what we should be doing. As myself and colleagues have been saying for many years, to achieve a step change to higher levels of cycling, we need to deliver those safe, coherent networks. And please, no more ridiculous paint on the road schemes like the one through Kelvedon and Fearing that do nothing to make cycling safer. And yes, I will once again, if Councillor Pell was here, she knows that she and I have a double act on this, raise the Marksfound roundabout and the cycle lane there on the approach to it along the A120. Bizarre does not do that justice, and I would defy anyone, even the most keen cyclists on a busy day, to try risking using that. The GNI Group proposed 4 specific new cycling routes which the Conservative administration initially rejected. These 4 routes and potentially others linking towns and villages are vital to achieving what we want to do, offering safe cycling over the typical distances between the towns and villages, not exclusively, but particularly in the south of the district, where most of the people live and where most of the development is happening. The EC2K route has been well spoken about, including by public speakers. That looks like it is going to come to fruition, and that's very much the sort of thing we're thinking about. A route which has distances between settlements of a few miles, which is well achievable for many cyclists. The next steps at paragraphs 5.1 and 5.2 of the agenda report for ongoing work to develop the implementation plan are welcome, as is the annual report to full council. I don't want to criticise really any part of the work that's been done, but would suggest that the implementation plan could be set out in a clearer way. And I think that's maybe something as a group we can look at, because I know we're going to review it. At paragraph 6.1, the agenda report says that no budget is yet available, but options for 22-23 are being explored. I do hope the District Council is able, taking on board what Councillor Butland said, obviously there are push-pull factors here, but I hope the District Council is able to find some money. And of course it's going to be vital also for the County Council to fund this, Section 106 money, LHP, government funding, and probably all of the above. I will, though, return to what I think is the Achilles heel of both this strategy and the climate change strategy. I agree absolutely with everything it says about, particularly about on page 5, about health, air quality, reducing CO2 emissions, etc. But it is not credible, and I saw there was no response at all from the administration to the points raised. It is simply not credible to be on the one hand saying we're going to do all these great green things and still be supporting major road building through open countryside. And I really would like the administration to respond to this point, because this document is full of great green rhetoric. You know, I could have written a lot of it myself 30 years ago, and colleagues could have done. And it's really good to see that progress being made towards accepting these are things that we're going to be doing. But if we're going to build things like the A120 Route D, which increases traffic, is being promoted as a growth corridor, and along with the A12 is going to cost the best part of £2 billion, we're going to have a lot less to spend on things like cycling. And also the same applies to other areas which are related, such as public rights of way. I've asked currently what the current budget is at the County Council for creation of public rights of way. When I was there, it was zero. We need to be putting money into the things we're talking about. To achieve both the urban connections, which are currently rather fragmented, and to do the interurban, we'll need to think differently. And I think this is captured actually on page 23 of the strategy. There may be obstacles now, such as that cyclists aren't supposed to go on public rights of way, but I'm sure we can overcome these to use suitable sections of public rights of way, to expand quiet lanes, and to work with parish councils and user groups to that effect. The proposal for performance indicators is welcome, and we need to keep a close watch on how progress matches the aims of the strategies. And I don't think the Chairman would disagree with this. This must not be another worthy strategy that gets filed and is largely undelivered. We need to deliver on the good things that it says. Because the fact is that in many parts of our district, cycling is currently difficult or indeed downright dangerous, and vulnerable cyclists continue to share road space with fast-moving traffic, including lorries. I have personal experience having been knocked off my bike twice, once quite seriously, by a hit-and-run driver. And that type of experience, which many cyclists have had, of being knocked off bikes or having been put in dangerous situations, is a major hindrance to more people cycling, or indeed for current cyclists carrying on. And this is, I'm coming on to an issue we've raised at the group. There are far too many deep potholes left for months by the County Council, exactly on the wheel track where cyclists go. If they don't see them, or if they're full of water and you hit one, you're going to come off your bike. So we need to do much, much better, but I'm very positive about this report, and I do hope this is a really good first step. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Department of Transport Cycling and Walking Investment Strategy says that they want to make cycling and walking the natural choices for shorter journeys, or as part of a longer journey. But the fact is that the majority of people prefer the convenience of a motorised vehicle. 20% of journeys in Britain are under 1 mile, a distance easily cycled in around 5 minutes. 38% under 2 miles cycled in about 10 minutes, and 66% are under 5 miles cycled in about 25 minutes. Just imagine how much pollution would be reduced if we just made the effort. This strategy provides us with that incentive. It addresses many of the existing barriers to cycling with a plan to enhance and expand our cycle network and ultimately encourage people to reduce their transport emissions and live and move around in a healthier way, supporting our climate change objectives. This Wednesday, the 22nd of September, happens to be World Car Free Day, a day which is set aside for individuals to consider another mode of transport, reduce pollution, and maybe have some fun with the kids by showing them how to develop key skills such as coordination, balance, and concentration. Let's bear that in mind because it's a chicken and egg situation. Many people won't cycle because of the danger perceived by the number of vehicles on the roads, but the number of vehicles won't reduce unless we choose to convey ourselves differently. I'm really pleased to see that on page 24, the strategy contains information about quiet lanes. This complements and reinforces the information distributed by Essex County Council. I know that the parish councils in my ward up at the north of the district appreciate regular information on ways to improve cycling in the rural areas and reduce the use of their lanes as rat runs. I can see that this cycling strategy has followed a rigorous process of engagement and the public feedback and response has been significant. I therefore have no hesitation in supporting this comprehensive document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'd like to start by strongly endorsing everything that Councillor Garrard just said. I think she hit the pump right on the point of the cycle tyre, particularly about short journeys. I do support this strategy. I think it's creative, I think it's innovative, and it's a really good initiative. I would like to add that I personally would give quite a bit of support to new or improved routes, not just within towns, but between towns, and connecting our towns to villages, villages to villages and hamlets. We've heard quite a lot this evening about the Earlscombe to Kelvedon route, and that the community group, cross-party, which includes a number of councillors from different parties, 70% of the route is approved, as you may know, and planning permission's been given for the first section. Crucially, we want that to extend down to Kelvedon Station for obvious reasons, commuting, but of course, while there are a number of housing developments actively, if not contentiously, in play, the jury is out on that. I hope it's a nut that can be cracked. I would want to make one specific point. I hope the steering group, and if you want more volunteers, Councillor Ritchie, I'm very happy to get involved. I'm an active cyclist. I hope we'll give consideration to the feasibility, and I state it no more highly than that, of certain additional routes. For example, from, say, Colchester to Braintree through Coggeshall. As we know, the A120 is due to be detrunked. I did once try to cycle from Coggeshall to Braintree to go round to the Flitch Way, and that was a pleasant experience. But I took my life in my hands, literally. To get to Bradwell, I took the circuitous route through the hamlet, and that was fine. But from Bradwell up to the roundabout that's just been mentioned in Braintree, you can go on the pavement, but the pavement is probably 2 feet wide, and you have 40 or 50-ton Pantechnicons coming within a foot of you. So I haven't repeated that experience. So I hope we will, and of course the Earlscombe to Kelvedon, it's called Earlscombe to Kelvedon Plus, because it's also looking at the feasibility of a route westward to Halstead, and a group of volunteers have recently been recruited to go and clear the route. And coming to an end, I hope the group will endorse, the steering group in taking this forward, will endorse this work, take it further and look at more of those routes connecting up the towns and villages and hamlets. I think that could create a culture of greater safety, and so short journeys can increasingly be taken by bike. And I'm sure we can do things to actively involve many district councillors or parish councillors or town councillors. Perhaps we can take measures to stimulate or co-fund or provide some expertise or just support, professional or organisational support, or answering problems using the experience of groups like EC2K and others to support parish and town councils to take initiatives in their area, because this needs to be a community strategy, not a Braintree District Council strategy. But it's really tremendous initiation, and I commend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Oh, is that on? It is. Good. Thank you. Yes, a very good document, very thorough. I just wanted to, I'm particularly pleased about the references to the rural areas. As Councillor Garrett has mentioned, the reference to trying to increase the number of quiet lanes, which I think would be very welcome, and also the use, looking at the existing rights of way which might be suitable. But in my enthusiasm, I just also want to add the note of caution that cycling in rural areas is not going to be for everyone. Quite often the distances are quite long. I mean, for me to my nearest town, it is actually 8 miles. And it's not suitable for very young people, it's not suitable for very old people, it's certainly not suitable if you're coming back from the supermarket with all your shopping. So it's not going to replace all journeys by any means. And when we're thinking about rural schemes, I do think we've just got to be realistic about how much money we're prepared to spend. There is no point spending taxpayers' money, if someone's remember it's taxpayers' money, on schemes where no one is going to use them. So we really do have to be realistic in thinking about what schemes we are prepared to fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Sandham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too very much support this strategy. It's a really excellent, clear document, and it's great to see all the action points with timings. I just wanted to make a point about safety, which was an issue that was raised by respondents in the questionnaire. And it's good to see that speed limits have been mentioned. It just seems to me that there's a huge potential for improvements in this area. There have been more and more successful 20 is plenty schemes implemented near schools and in residential areas, but there's a lot more that could be done. And then also the speed limits of rural roads. We've got tiny little narrow roads that have speed limits of 60 miles an hour on them. So there's a lot of potential there to improve the safety if that was something that could be looked at. And yeah, finally, just great to see the clear, measurable targets for creating rural cycle routes to connect the towns and villages with timeframes specified. And I'm really looking forward to seeing these plans develop.
Thank you, Councillor Sandham. Councillor Tattersley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I can't share a debate on cycling without reinforcing the health benefits, both for the young and the not so young, in terms of fitness and reducing pollution. There's an excellent summary on page 8 of the strategy, or page 89 of your agenda, on the local health and well-being benefits of cycling. But I also expect and hope that it will allow more school-aged children to cycle to school. Often these journeys that the kids make aren't very far. But if they were made safe and easy to do so, it would significantly reduce the nuisance caused to local residents by parents and school staff parking outside the school gates, particularly at drop-off and pick-up times. I would also like to mention at this time about our world champion and Olympic gold medal winner in Bethany Shriver, who lives in my ward at Finchamfield and trained at the Braintree BMX Club. I had the pleasure of attending a tryout session for the youngsters interested in the sport, and the number of children that turned up for these tryout sessions were really impressive. And I feel sure that even though BMX cycling is a niche sport, a lot of these youngers will go on to take advantage of any new cycling facilities we're able to support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tattersley. Councillor Rickey, as the proposer of the recommendation, would you like to reply to the speeches? But please don't introduce any new matters.
I won't, Madam Chairman, and I will be quick. Thank you for inviting me to do so. Councillor Spray, it's great to hear that through the planning mechanism we can try and hold to account some of the medium and larger developments so that we can focus funds towards delivering some of our aspirations. But you're absolutely right. There is some complexity and some financial challenges that we will have to overcome along the way. Councillor Abbott mentioned about some routes, and so did Councillor Walsh. I don't think there's not going to be one route that won't be up for consideration during the concept stage. I think everything will be considered for its merit. It'll only be through that detailed phasing of going through the concept stage and identifying what are the most viable routes that we then get to the discounting of those that are more viable over others. But at this moment in time, nothing is being discounted. Again, with Councillor Abbott, budget setting, we are going to need to set out or set aside some budget, particularly with in-house resource. Without this resource, we won't even stand a chance of delivering on some of these projects. So it will be a consideration at the budget setting stage. Your comments on the A120, of course, there's going to be a balance that needs to be struck around road use. We're not going to get away from road use in its entirety. Although it may lead to an increase in traffic, you can only hope that the increase in sustainable vehicles will help, not only with obviously reducing emissions, but also ensuring that we can stay stable from a financial perspective as a viable district. And a few of you have mentioned safer and usable high quality routes. It goes without saying, unless they're delivered as a primacy, the strategy and the implementation plan will fail to deliver on its first point. Councillor Garrett mentioned about reliance on cars and a step change. Well, of course, we all need to think about how we can start to normalise children getting on a bike, and children often imitate the adults that they see. So it's down to us to start making that change and to start nurturing and harnessing how we make that more normal and normalising getting on a bike rather than immediately grabbing the car keys to make a short journey to school for the school run. Encourage your children to jump on a bike instead. And again, we will come up with mechanisms to make that safer. On one of those points, Councillor Sandon mentioned speed schemes, 20 is plenty. And of course, these are some of the range of the not so financially burdensome and some of the ones that are probably quicker to implement through collaboration with Essex County Council. And we will certainly look to see how we can make use of that. Again, just going back to what Councillor Walsh said about additional routes, I think we need to be district focused for now, but I think, like I said, as part of the concept review around all routes should be considered. We will think about everything with regards to town-to-town connectivity as well as town-to-village connectivity also. Councillor Parker also mentioned about rural areas, and I completely understand that some rural areas are so rural that only the keen cyclist amongst us would jump on a bike and have that as a route of a longer journey. But that kind of fits into what Councillor Tattersley was mentioning about the health and fitness benefits of people getting on a bike. Some people see it more than just a journey to get from point to point. Some people do it as a hobby and a sport, and there is still that consideration to be taken in mind. And on the topic of sport, Councillor Tattersley quite nicely tied in there about Beth Shriver. We all pick up on notable events like this. It happened during the Olympics when we hosted them here. It pushed a real drive for people to jump on their bikes when we had the tour coming through our district too. And it's harnessing events like this, it's harnessing the good things that people do that shows how we can use alternate ways of travel, how we can get people into sport, how we can get people onto bikes. Thank you, Madam Chairman. That's as much as I wanted to sum up on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ricky. Thank you, members. The recommendation set out on page 61 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please indicate. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the recommendation has been approved. Right, I think I can close the meeting now. As there's no further business on the agenda, before closing the meeting, can I please remind members that the next ordinary meeting of full council will be held on the 11th of October. An audio recording of this meeting will be published on the council's YouTube channel / website as soon as possible. Can you please remain seated until your row has been invited to leave by the governance officers, and I would be grateful if you would vacate the theatre promptly so that officers can clear the venue as quickly and safely as possible. Members, if you have any feedback following this evening's meeting, please can you provide this directly to Emma Wisby or Kim Cole, who can consider it for future councillor meetings. So thank you very much for coming, and good night.